as we kind of wrap up Ignite here, I'm going to be talking about marketplace specifics, which is a little bit difficult because we're all each of our marketplaces are independently owned and operated, and so each market center has kind of its own flavor of how they do business. So I'm going to try and keep it in generalities this morning. I think it's really important just kind of for you to, as a Keller Williams agent, kind of understand the structure of Keller Williams and how. Here's Haley coming in. The structure of Keller Williams, because that doesn't change across market centers, but how each market center operates, some of the policies and procedures they have might be a little bit different. Of course, you have the different personalities involved, but also how the day-to-day operations are run by the executive leadership team, how the agent leadership council makes decisions and implements those in the market center. I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in just a little bit. Okay, so to get started, today's the last day. I want you to go into your tracker and put in your business activity. You've got your 410s, right? And that's really a big part of Ignite, is not just the educational, informational kind of stuff you got, but also the practice of daily doing your business. In fact, I'm wearing a T-shirt, think like a CEO. Part of my Keller Williams gear, I guess. I need to stand up here just a second. What makes being a realtor unique is that you are really in charge of your destiny. You're an independent contractor. You're working underneath the firm's umbrella and paying as part of your commission split for the tools, systems, and models, to have access to those, have access to the training, and be able to utilize those systems, tools, and models. So let me ask you, how many of you have started inputting your contacts in Command? Good. Anybody up to 100 yet? Good for you, Ashley. Victoria, are you up to 100?
Yeah, I am. I just try to do, like, I've been putting it in my brain to at least just do 10 a day. And it's really not hard if you just do 10 a day. You could.
Perfect. Victoria, that's exactly right. That's your goal. If you can do 10 contacts a day and contact 10 people a day, that is the fastest way to get your business going. And the way I liken it is to, every business knows what their business activity is or should be, and at the end of the day can measure that, right? And it doesn't matter what business you're in. We have a donut shop here in town. Maybe some of you have heard about it, called Spud Nuts. They don't make donuts, they make Spud Nuts. Their quote unquote donuts are made out of potato flour. They're really, really good. Yeah, it's amazing. And they're really light and fluffy. I mean, they put Krispy Kreme to shame. And but it's interesting. I've met people at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. The place is open. The crew has been working all night making donuts, and they've got these stacks of donuts coming in, and people are they drive by. There's no drive-through. They drive by, park their car in the parking lot, walk in, and they're grabbing these stacks of donuts to take to work out in the Hanford area or whatever business they're working at. And you should see the donuts moving out of the door at 4:30, 5:30 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning. It's just absolutely insane. And so I know a couple of the people that work there, and they know by 3:30 in the morning how many donuts they need to have made in order to beat that morning rush. They have it measured. They have systems down. They have tools that they use. They have a model of making this donuts that they train all of their people who come and work for them, and they fit right in there. And because they know that they need to produce so many thousand donuts before 4:30 in the morning when people start showing up. Because if they don't, they won't be in business for very long, right? Because people can't count on them. They're going to show up for their donuts and they're not going to be ready. They don't want to wait in line because they're on their way to work. They want to be able to come in, pick up their stack of donuts or spud nuts, because don't call them donuts. You'll be corrected by the crew very quickly. You come in and you pick up your stack of spud nuts and you pay for it. And a lot of people, it's prepaid. They just come in and pick them up and they're out the door. But they know how many donuts by 3:30 in the morning. They know when the clock dings 3:30, they know how many thousands of donuts they need to have sitting ready to go out the door. That's pretty incredible, right? Do you think that they have to be efficient? How efficient do you have to be to have thousands of donuts ready by 3:30 in the morning? Right? Do you think that they keep track of their numbers? Yeah, what if their numbers go up? Do you think that they know times of the year where there's more demands on their spud nuts than other times of the year? Do you think they know that? Do you think that they know when their peak season is and when maybe the slow season starts? Right? They know that. They're just a family-run business, but they have their system, tools, and models to be very, very successful. They're very popular here. The place is packed. It's been around for 73 years. They just celebrated their 73rd birthday. And they had not changed much. There's not very many tables to go in and sit at. So if you want a table in the morning, chances are you got to get there really early if you're meeting somebody there for coffee and a spud nut, or you got to be willing to wait around until there's a chair or table available for you, right? Every business operates the same way that's successful. Every business, I can tell you right now, right? If it's a franchise, your local McDonald's down the streets, they know how many Big Macs they need to make each day to be prepared to make. They know how much hamburger they need to have in the freezer, how much lettuce they need to have in the refrigerator, how many tomatoes they've got in the refrigerator, how many onions they need to have in the bag to be able to have sliced, diced, and ready to cook and out the door for the day. How important do you think it is to the local owner of a McDonald's franchise to know what his numbers are? You think it's important? Do you think that you go Grubhub ordering donuts to your house? Great. Well, I'm glad to contribute to local business, Taylor. Do you think that the local manager of the McDonald's franchise has to report their numbers every day? Of course they do. How long do you think that manager of that local McDonald's would be in business if they weren't recording their numbers and keeping track of their business activity? How long do you think they would keep their job? Not very long. So the question is based upon your business activity over the last 2 weeks of Ignite, would you hire you? I'm just asking.
That is a convicting question. That is a good one.
I'm just asking. Now, this is not, I'm not having this conversation to get down on you or make you feel guilty or bad or anything. What I'm trying to do is to help you realize the motivation for why you do what you do and why it's important that you do what you do. It's important. You are a business owner running a business. You need to know what your business activity is each day. You need to set your goal, right? 10 people a day. Contact them, get them in your contact database, put them on a touch campaign so you can stay in contact with. Because remember, I'm sure we've mentioned this already in Ignite, but you're not selling houses, you're getting into relationships with people. And these are long-term relationships, 5, 6, 7 years before they turn around and buy. But in that 5, 6, 7 years, you are going to become their real estate professional who is their resource for all things real estate. Right? Hey, Jim, I know you're in real estate. Do you happen to know a good electrician? We need to have some electrical work done at our house.
I do. I know several.
Perfect. Why don't you send me text me their names and numbers and I'll get a hold of them. Thanks for being available for me.
You bet. I'm right on it.
Painters, plumbers, people who have issues or questions around title about their property, insurance agents, all of those need to be a part of your professional network so that you are the resource that people think about concerning any kind of real estate needs, not just buying and selling homes. Going to keep you top of the mind. And so, in your touch campaign, you have an opportunity to remind them, oh, by the way, if you're needing if you're planning on doing spring cleanup, I've got landscapers that I'm in relationship with that I can make a referral to if you need a landscaper. For us around here in the Tri-Cities, and probably you in Yakima and Spokane, well, even Lewiston, Clarkston, the big one right now is fixing sprinkler systems, right? Repairing all the busted sprinkler heads and sprinkler lines, right? So there you go. This is a great opportunity to reach out to your sphere, and whether it's a text or an email or a phone call, and let them know spring cleanup is here. If they need any recommendations for landscapers or sprinkler repair people, you are the person to reach out to, right? And keep in mind, when you do things like that, don't provide the information. Provide yourself as the source of the information, right? Because then if they need the information, they're going to contact you, and that invites you into a relationship with them again. It's all about relationships. All right. So you're going to go into your tracker. You're going to track your goals. What I'd like you to do is look over the last 2 weeks that you've been using the 410 tracker and look at how much business activity you have done, and ask yourself, would I hire me based upon my business activity? If I was, the manager of my real estate company, would I hire me? And let that spur you on to set your goals for the next 2 weeks, right? So you just finished 2 weeks of command. Sit down and set your goals for the next 2 weeks, or set your goals for the next month. I have actually started using the One Thing Planner. I've gone back to old school. So at the end of every month, I sit down and I look at my business activity, and I set goals for the next month. So I go 4 weeks out. And so there's some months that I'm killing my numbers, and there's some months where I need to play catch up. And so I know that I need to increase my business activity to stay on my goals for the year. So I set goals for the year, and I track that every month. How am I doing? How am I doing? Am I on par to meet my goals? Because what I don't want to do is get to October and realize that October, November, and December are going to be crazy because I'm so far behind in my goals, right? Or I get to October and I just end up giving up and throwing my hands up in the air and say, well, that was a waste of energy, and I don't even know why I set goals, right? So give yourself something to shoot for. Now, here's the other thing too that I want you to keep in mind is make your goals measurable, but also make your goals realistic, right? Spring break is coming. My wife is a teacher. So we'll probably be gone for part of spring break. My goals are going to reflect that. So if you know that there's a week of vacation in there, let your goals reflect that. It might be that you lower your goals for that month, or it might be that you ramp up your goals the week before because you know you're going to be on vacation, whatever it's going to take for you to reach your yearly goals. But make sure that you put that in your consideration when you set your daily goals and your weekly goals and your monthly goals, right? Make them measurable, but also make them realistic, okay? And that's going to be, I think, a huge part of building your mindset of success. right? Nobody likes to go up to bat and keep continually strike out. That is no fun, right? But I figure, man, if I can bat 300, I'm pretty happy with that, right? So it's the same way in business. I'm not going to go out. I can't have the expectation I'm going to go up and hit a home run every time I go to bat. But I'll definitely hit some singles and doubles, and I'll hit an occasional triple. And if I hit 300, I'm pretty happy with that, right? Because I know that this is, again, a long-term gain when involved in real estate. So looking back over the last 2 weeks in Ignite Elementals, what are some of the ahas that you have come away with? So go ahead and unmute yourself, or you can put it in the chat bar too. What are some of the ahas you've come away with in the Ignite Elementals week? Anything that you've learned, or anything that you didn't realize before? Thought, oh wow, this is huge. Or maybe it's something that you've realized, I want to put that into practice. Anybody? Go ahead and put it in the chat box on the side, or go ahead and unmute yourself and chime right in here.
I mean, I will. This has been so good. Even the days I didn't think I was going to or didn't feel like maybe it would be super applicable. It was great. Like yesterday's money talk on the 30-30-40, we weren't doing that. And we've been lucky enough to close some deals. It's just been we didn't know.
Right.
I mean, I think, the perking your sphere, the open house session was amazing. Increasing your brand, your presence online, marketing. I mean, I can't say enough good things about Ignite.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that, Ashley. Yeah.
I'd like to echo that. It's been a real eye opener for me. I mean, it's like really helped me start. In fact, we did an open house last night. And I used all of the material, well, most of it that I could. It was
Sure.
pretty minimal, but yeah, it's been great. I look
Good.
forward to it every month.
Good. What were a couple of the tricks of the trade, or what were a couple of the things concerning open houses that you go, oh, that's great to use, or I hadn't thought of that before?
Well, if it opens back up, that was a really good session. I really enjoyed it. She was so full of energy. It got me excited. But
Good.
just the fact, I always looked at open houses as a way to sell the house, but getting the prospects. I will say this: the one that we had last night, because the inventory is so low, we just put it on the market yesterday, or we just listed the day before. So we had an open house, and my contacts were all other agents bringing people to the show. So
Sure. Right.
I didn't get any new business, but at least I got the opportunity to experience it.
Yeah,
was interesting.
well, exactly right. So you got the opportunity to experience open house. It also gives you the opportunity to practice scripts.
Right.
Practice the business activities, introducing yourself, asking if they're working with a realtor,
Right.
finding out what their objections are to buying this house, so you can discover, okay, what are they looking for, right? So yeah, good for you, Jim. Yeah, it's great.
I have my
Robertson
first.
mentioned that it's that this is you don't graduate from Ignite. That this is a reoccurring, ongoing thing. So I encourage you, the next time Ignite comes around, because we try to do this quarterly, is because you will, if you go through it again, you'll pick up different stuff. And because the instructors or facilitators are different, they're going to come at it with a different angle that you'll learn stuff from. That's kind of been the fun thing that I've had when I was opening up Ignite every morning. I would sit in and listen, and every facilitator had something that was like, oh, I hadn't thought of that before. That was really good. Yeah, Brian, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, you're totally fine. I was just going to kind of piggyback off of Ashley and Jim. I have my first listing coming up and open house, and I've just learned so much from all the instructors, especially the second part of the course has been great for just learning some tricks of the trade. And
Good.
I'm just really excited, and it's kind of funny. Like from the first 2 weeks to now, I've been able to get 2 people under contract, and
Wow, great.
it's been great. It's been amazing, and having all the feedback from different instructors and all the people's feedback, everybody that's in this class that I've been with for like the last 4 weeks now has been just so interesting and helpful. And yeah, it's just been super helpful guiding me through that experience, considering I kind of just started in January. So it's been, it's just funny that this has been kind of my guide to getting right into business. And then now, now I'm about to
Sure.
graduate from this class. So
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you. Yeah.
thanks. Yeah.
That's exciting to hear.
Thank you.
Anybody else? And again, you can put it in the chat bar, or you can go ahead and pipe in. I'm gonna grab some coffee here real quick.
Well, I'd like to kind of reiterate what Brian said too. Just the contacts and talking with everybody in the group has been really, really special too. Making contacts and just sharing stuff with each other. So that's been
Good. So for those of you who focusing on your 410s, digging into your sphere, making contacts with people, what are some of the mindset things that you found yourself that you had to overcome in order to jump on board with that?
I think one thing that I'm just trying to, read as many books as possible about real estate. And I think what I tell, anybody that I have conversations with, and including myself and my team owner, John Walker, I just know I have a service to offer people. And every time I have a conversation with somebody or get to meet new people, it's exciting and it's fun. And I only have something to offer. I'm never trying to be the snake oil salesman. I'm just trying to help you. And that's what my intention is with this business, is to help people as much as possible and learn along the way as well. If
That's
makes
great,
sense.
Brian. I love that mindset. I love that, because to me, it's all about relationships. I really work my sphere. That's been the basis of my business, is working my sphere. And so, I just want to be the friend who they also know is a realtor, and that every conversation I have some kind of value that I bring. The knowledge of the market, knowledge and of the network of people that I am in business with, like I referred to earlier: painters, plumbers, electricians, roofers, builders, all those, all so that any conversation that comes, well, I know somebody who might be able to help you with that, right? Yeah. So that makes the segue into having those conversations so much better, because I'm coming from a place of contribution and value, right? So I love that. I love that mindset. I think that, and I appreciate what you said about that too, Brian, because I think that sometimes when we're making these contacts, or we're calling our sphere, or we are thinking, we're thinking that we come at it from a sense that this is a sales call, and it's not a sales call. I would like, if I could, get the agents in my office to realize it's not a sales call. You're not selling anything. It's a relationship call. Yeah. That's why I find the Ford, friends, occupation, recreation, and dreams so valuable, right? It's relationships first. That's what Gary Keller Williams. It's relationships first, sales second. If you get into relationship with people and stay in relationship with people, sales will come. Is that right, Brian?
Yeah, and I think one thing that I spent a lot of time, I'm turning 31 years old this year, and I spent a lot of time my whole life with the intention that every job I did was to make money. And, I made that my primary focus. And that was always my intention: make money, to make more money, to get promoted, whatever. And I never got it. Because that was my intention, was simply that. So in real estate, I realized if you come from a place of contribution, like everybody has so far to me that's in this business with knowledge and information, that's only helped me. So now
Yeah.
that's a way for me to pay it forward as well. And, you know, not that money is the last thing on my mind in real estate, but it is simply not the first. That's for dang sure. Like my
Sure.
intention is come from a place of contribution to give and to be helpful and provide, you know, a service to people that is for one of the biggest investments of their life. And that's something that I have, you know, an interest in myself, and, you know, making great investments, because I never learned how to do that when I was younger. And if you just get to sit and talk to the right person, you can make some amazing things happen. So that's where I come from.
Yeah, good. I love that. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. And I think that's exactly right. You take care of your sphere, you take care of your friends, you take care of the people that your relationship with you, and you really show that you care about them and are interested in their life. The business is going to come. It's going to follow. People love to do business with people that they know, love, and trust. They love it. And the other thing is, you know, once I get into relationship with people, and even for people I've never met before, they're a cold call, or there's somebody they're off of a cold lead, and I just happen to follow up on them, and I show them a few houses, and pretty soon we're under contract. Typically by the end of 35 or 45 days when that contract is closed, they have become a friend. They now are in my sphere, not because they're a sales call, not because they're a quote unquote client or customer, because they're a friend. That's really how I approach it. Now, I just to be perfectly honest here, there have been some relationships that have been pretty rough, and I didn't stay in a relationship with them after the sale closed. I just want to, you know, I don't want to paint this, you know, all bed of roses kind of a picture here. Because after 12 years in the business, there have been a few rough cases where the sale closed and I was glad and I was done, and they weren't going into my database because it just was not, it was that rough. It was rocky for both parts, my part as well as theirs. So it wasn't necessarily all of them. I have to own my part too, right? There's two sides of the story. However, again, it's just we're working on this program here. But for the vast majority of people, by the time we're done with the transaction and I've either sold their house or bought their house, I helped them buy a house or helped them sell and buy a house, they really are like family, like friends. And so staying in contact with them makes it all that much easier. Because I'm not calling a client, I'm calling a friend. I really am interested in how they're doing. If it's an anniversary call, hey, it was, do you realize it was 5 years ago I helped you buy that house? How are you guys doing? How's it going? How are the kids doing? Or how are the dogs doing? Stay in relationship with them. I can tell you that I never, in my sphere, I never lead with a sales call. I never lead with a sales approach. I always lead with a relationship approach. And I can tell you 9 times out of 10, they are the ones who will ask me, what's going on with the market? 9 times out of 10. They will ask me, my neighbor down the street just listed their house. Do you know how much they are listing their house for? What's going on in the market? 9 times out of 10, they are the ones that invites me into the conversation to bring value to them around what they're needing at the time. 9 times out of 10. I don't need to remind them that I'm in real estate because I've been staying in touch with them on a regular basis. They already know that. And so that's kind of the fun thing, I think, is they often out of curiosity are asking about the market, the price of homes. The big one in the Tri-Cities is, where's everybody coming from? They want to blame California, but it's not really California anymore. I think it's people from the west side of the state are moving over to the east side of the state. And a lot of them are moving to Idaho. Holy cow, a lot of people are moving to Idaho. That I think that's the value, and I love what you're saying, Brian. I think that is the value of coming from that mindset. that you're working with a sphere of friends and you're coming from a place of contribution and bringing value to their lives. And whenever you do that, only good things are going to happen for you. Guaranteed, only good things are going to happen. So stay with that. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about Keller Williams in general terms in your market centers, all right? I think most of us are a little new to Keller Williams, not all of us. A few of us have been around a while, but sometimes there's this mystery around the market center, and they're trying to figure out. And we have we call them Kellerisms, the ELT, the ALC, the I can't even remember some of them now, but we have a lot, all right? But what I want to do for just the next little bit, probably next 20 minutes or so, and then we'll take a break. So I want to talk a little bit about your market center and really how it's structured to bring you value, right? You're part of a powerful firm, a brokerage that is really built to empower the agents, right? To build your business. And so there's several tools here. Let me quickly bring up my notes here that you need to be aware of, right? One of them that you should be familiar with and may not be very deeply familiar with is every market center is going to have an executive leadership team, and they can be made up a little bit different, but that executive leadership team really runs the day-to-day operations of what's going on in the market. Typically, the team leader is the one at the top of that. A principal owner may or may not be involved very much at all. But typically, it's the team leader, the market center administrator. They really are the core, the heart of your market center. Then you might have an agent services coordinator. We do here. Catherine Gettick is our agent services coordinator. She really helps with onboarding and is kind of the go-to person for any of the services we provide. So if you have any questions, you get in our market center, you get a hold of Catherine. There should be a contact person for there. Our market center also has a managing broker. Some market centers have more than one managing broker. Team leaders tend to be managing brokers themselves, and so the teams will have their own managing broker to refer to for questions. You possibly may have a transaction coordinator that's all that as an option for agents. And each market center should have somebody who's knowledgeable about technology and technology ambassador. In our market center, Brian Verhey, right? Is everybody familiar that your market center has an executive leadership team that kind of helps make sure that the market center is running well and that there's resources that are available to you? Do you know who to get contacted if you need a conference room to meet clients in? Or do you know how to schedule a conference room to meet clients in? We have a large one and we have a small one. There's a way of being able to schedule that so you can reserve time to be able to meet clients in it, right? Rather than having people lined up in the hallway, okay? So everybody's familiar with the executive leadership team of do you know who those people are? Do you know who your team leader is? Do you know who your market center administrator is, okay? Those are typically the two big ones, as well as your possibly your managing broker team leader, right? The second part is, do you know your leadership council? Now, the leadership council is typically made up of the top 20%, typically their team leaders. The agent or associate leadership council is also called, right? They are the ones who help set the goals and kind of the long-term yearly vision for where the market center wants to do, where they want to go, what policies and procedures and practices they want to put in place to benefit all their agents, right? And they attempt to make sure there's a level playing field. And so everybody has access to the tools. They typically they are part of the committees that are involved, the culture committee and the services committee and things like that. They help I don't know that we did one last year because of COVID, but typically every spring we have a red day where it's a community service day that we get together as an office and do some sponsor some community service organization and go out and help and sometimes raise money for them too. So that agent leadership council or associate leadership councils, it's really important that you are aware that who those individuals are and that you have conversations with them. And particularly if it revolves around policies and procedures and you've got questions about, maybe why your market center does this, or more importantly, if you've got a great idea for how your market center could bring value to the agent leadership council is a great place to go and raise those opportunities for your market center. Like I said, every market center is a little bit different. How many ALC members are on your that can vary. Some have 3. I think we've got 6 in our market center, and they could be more than that. But you're going to need to know who those individuals are. So here's the question: do you know who the ALC members are in your market center? Everybody know that? Kind of, right? Okay, so ELT runs the day-to-day monthly activities. They're kind of on the ground leadership. The ALC are the ones who set the yearly goals, make the yearly plans, providing services to the agents. They're also the ones who help do the training calendar, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a moment here. Well, let's talk about that right now. How many of you in your market centers know where to be able to get a hold of the training calendar for your market center? Do you know that you have a training calendar in your
Yes.
market center?
Isn't
Good.
that the one that we
Thank you,
get sent
Victoria.
out every week? Is it the same in every market center?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think it is. It's possible. I think the goal is that it is, but I don't know that every market center makes it available.
Because I know we have like
ours does. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I know we have like a newsletter that comes out and we get it every day, and it has the TMO reports, it has the training sessions, it has questions,
Perfect.
it has all of that.
Okay, good. Great. I think we put ours out once a week. Haley Robertson, I saw you chiming in here. But I believe ours comes out once a week, kind of a looking ahead. Here's the training that's available. I do think that there's also a daily email that goes out each morning of the training that's available. So we have scripts and role play several times a week. We have technology training several times a week. I do the contracts training in our market center. Been doing those Wednesday evening. I used to do them twice a week. I did them in Wednesday late afternoon and then Friday morning. We're thinking about, as things begin to open up, thinking about doing a Friday morning again, doing another time during the week. There's one other one, the technology, and then usually once or twice a month, we also do training on commissions and how to get your paperwork for commissions. That's typically geared around newer agents. And then have what you're involved in, Ignite. Bold is coming up. We usually do that in our market center. We usually do that in the fall. So I don't know what that's gonna look like this next year. I know last year we attempted to do it regionally and did it on Zoom, and that actually went pretty well. But Bold is business objective, life by design. It's a really intensive. It's like Ignite on steroids, really, is what it's like. So if you get an opportunity to be a part of Bold, I encourage you to sign up and do that. It has a lot of value that's in it. Does any of your other market centers have any other training or training events that maybe I'm not aware of? Does that pretty much cover it? Is that what it looks like in your guys' market centers?
We have a thing called Learn Through Lunch every week where on Thursdays where we do training also.
What did they cover during that time, Jim?
It depends. Every week it's a little bit different. And it's like we did vision boards one time. We did script or seller and buyer informs to send out. We get them.
Okay.
We've had lenders come in, all different kinds of
Okay.
stuff.
And what was it called?
Learning Through Lunch.
Learning Through Lunch?
Mm-hmm.
I like that. We might have to steal that idea. I like that. We've been talking about doing some kind of lunchtime thing. And we did like one a month before COVID hit. So we've been bouncing that idea around. I do like the idea of having titled people in, lenders in, teaching the loan process, teaching the title process, teaching the escrow process, as well as I also love the idea of doing buyer's presentation and listing presentations. I think that'd be a great opportunity to do that too. So scripts and role play would be a little tough because everybody's got food in their mouth. That might not work very well. But yeah, so that's a great idea. I like that, Learning Through Lunch. Yeah. Have to think about that. That's the advantage of these kind of things too. So the other thing that you have available too is that you need to be aware of when it comes to your market center is, do you know your office's way for you to get your commission check or for you to get paid? Do you know what that process looks like? What are the required documents that the firm needs for a completed transaction file? Now, every market center is a little unique in this, but you need to know what that is. And if you don't understand what that is or know what that is, I really strongly encourage you to get together with your MCA or agent service coordinator and make sure you have clarity around, okay, these are the files that need to be uploaded into compliance, need to be checked for compliance. What does your firm or your market center check for compliance before they release the file so that you can get your commission check? And again, there's a lot of variety or a wide range of practices in that. What I'm doing is I'm raising the flag on the flagpole and letting you know that if you're not familiar with that process, you need to be in the know in that process, right? What you don't want to do is all of a sudden have a closing and then trying to figure out what you were supposed to do or what you were, that's just frustrating. So let's eliminate that frustration by alerting you right now that if you're not familiar with that process is, now's the time to learn it. You don't want to learn it at the end of the process when all the timeline is scrunched out. Does that make sense? Okay. Does anybody have any questions around that? Do you have some clarity about how your market center handles that? What are the documents required to release commission checks? What are the compliance requirements that your market center has for meeting the Department of Licensing requirements? That's going to be a little bit different, particularly in Lewiston, Clarkston. They just announced in Washington that they've opened up the Department of Licensing to start doing audits again. So I'm expecting a slew of audits to come. It's all going to be virtual, of course. So that's going to be interesting. I don't know how they're going to do that. But as it was even before COVID, they could come in pretty almost unannounced and request to see files, and they could just randomly pull files and check them for Department of Licensing purposes and audit our files. So it becomes really, really important that you understand that process. The other thing is, do you know who in your market center to contact regarding what issues or what problems or what questions you might have? Do you know who to contact if you have questions around contracts? Do you have a contact person in your market center for that? Raise your hand if you've got a contact person for that. Do you have a contact person to ask questions around contracts? In our market center, that's me. I'm the managing broker here, so I handle the compliance side of things and field most of the questions, not all of them, but most of the questions when it comes to contracts, either how they're filled out or how they're implemented or what form to use. But it's going to be really important that you know who you need to contact. Some market centers have a rotation of managing brokers or team leaders that play that role, that are available for those kinds of questions. Who do you know to contact? What about real estate practices? Who do you contact, or who is your contact person when it comes to not contracts questions, just real estate practices? Right? How do you do an open house? How do you interact with this client? Or, I've got this buyer that's wanting to do this. What should I do? When do you have somebody that you look for advice? Now, if you're on a team, that's going to be your team leader, right? But if you're not on a team, if you're an independent agent in the office, who is that person? Who's the individual that you can contact for that? The other is technology problems. You have problems with KW Command, or in our MLS we have Paragon. If you're in the Northwest MLS, you have Matrix. Using zip forms, you're using Authentisign or DocuSign. You got a whole slew of Northwest MLS programs that are available, but in the PAC MLS you do too. So in your MLS, you might have different tools available. Do you have somebody in the market center? Who's the person in your market center who is the tech person, who's tech savvy, and who can answer those questions for you? Do you have somebody who can solve computer problems? If you have problems with Microsoft software, if you have problems with if you're Apple user, if you have problems with your Apple computer or your Mac computer, who's your technology person? Now, that brings up if you're in Washington, and maybe Idaho has one, you have a tech hotline in the state of Washington with Washington Realtors that you can contact. Did you know that? Free technology hotline in the state of Washington through Washington Realtors. 866-610-8939. And they pretty much handle everything. And I've used them. And they what do they call it? Remoted into my laptop, took over, and I watched things zipping around and changing on my laptop, and whatever the problem was with my computer, they took care of it. So that resource is a huge resource as far as I'm concerned. You need to know if you have somebody in your office. Now, some offices, some market centers, they actually have a tech person that they kind of have on a retainer that can come in. They'll either remote into your computer, or they can come by the office and help you. Sometimes we have agents who have problems connecting to the network to our printers. Who's the individual who helps you in your market center for that? Who's that contact person, right? What about scheduling spaces? I already mentioned the scheduling spaces, conference rooms, training rooms, drop-in spaces. Who's the contact person for that? What about calendar events and event questions? Who's the contact person if you have questions around things that are going on in your market center? Who is that contact person? Do you know who that is? Do you have a clear idea who that person is, right? You should have a list from your market center that lists that. We do in our market center, we have a list that tells agents who to contact for what question. Every market center has teams. So the question you need to ask is, what's the availability of teams? What's the word? How you join a team, or how you become a part of a team if you're an independent agent, weren't recruited on a team right out of the gate. Every market center is a little bit different about that. In our market center, we have an actual process. If we have an independent agent that all of a sudden wakes up one morning and goes, you know what, I want to be a part of the team. I don't want to do this on my own anymore. We have actually a step process that we take agents through. We want to make sure that relationship happens well, that we call it a marriage, that we make sure that that relationship is well, because we'd rather have it start out well than come down the road and things go sideways. It's just not healthy for them, healthy for their business, or healthy for a market center. So we have a step process that we take agents through. Do you know what that is? And you need to know what that is. Leveraging the experience in the market center, I think, is one of the most valuable things about belonging to your firm, right? We have a little over 140 agents in the Tri-City Market Center, and we have a huge depth of experience here. As far as experienced agents, experienced teams, one of the most valuable things you have in your arsenal to be successful in business is the network of relationships in your market center. One of the most important things you can do is to begin to build those relationships and be in relationships with other people. Whether you're on a team or not, it doesn't matter. I think one of the most valuable things is just being able to go to lunch or go to coffee and pick another agent's brain about what they're doing, what's made them successful, why are they doing what they're doing, right? I'm involved in our local association as well as in our state association, and I think one of the biggest values of being involved in those associations is that networking opportunity where I get to pick the brains of other brilliant people who are in business, and learn from them. What are they doing in their places of business? What are they doing in their areas all across the country? I was at the National Association of Realtors convention here a few years ago, and I talked to a guy from Denver, Colorado, and picked up on one of the things, because he only works his sphere. So he's like me. He doesn't do a lot of marketing. He doesn't do a lot of cold calling or door knocking. He just works his sphere. He works it really hard, and he's extremely successful. And he had some tips about working his sphere that I just thought were brilliant that I began to implement. So leverage those relationships, right? Use those opportunities to learn from other people who have been in business and who are successful, right? Find somebody, if you're at the $5 or $6 million production level, find somebody who's at the $12 or $15 million production level and talk to them if you want to grow your business. Does that make sense? Find somebody who is the notch above you and have conversations with them. If you're at the $12 or $15 million level and you want to keep growing, you need to be in conversations and relationships with people who are at the $20 to $25 million production level. What are they doing? What did they do to get to that production level? What are their practices? Now, that's not to say you're going to adopt or adapt everything that they do. There's some agents whose business practices, they're great and they're killing it, but take me out and shoot me now, because I could not do that. I just couldn't do what they're doing. And it's not that it's not valuable to have conversations with them, but their business practices, the way they're doing business, is just way different than my personality and how I approach life, right? So that network of relationships in your market center, I think, is one of the most valuable things that you can tap into. There's gold in those relationships, and you need to intentionally mine that gold. You need to be intentional about building those relationships, because those relationships will carry you a long way down the road. If you plan on being a realtor for very long, if you plan on being in this long term, those relationships 10 years down the road, you're going to look back and think, man, I'm glad that I have become really good friends with Realtor XYZ, because they have added such value to my experience as a realtor, right? Okay, before we move on to the next session, I want to take a 10-minute break. So it's 10 o'clock. We're going to come back at 10:10. Let's take a 10-minute break, get some water, refill your coffee pot. I'm only on my second cup, so I'm doing pretty good this morning. And well, I'll see you back in 10 minutes.
A few moments later.
Welcome back. Yeah, good, Kimberly. Wasn't taken through the process of choosing a team. Yeah, apologize for that. But yes, there is a process, and you need to be aware that there is a process. So that's why I raised it, or raised the issue, because I do think you're right, Kimberly. I don't think a lot of agents realize that there's a process to go through, but we just want to make sure that happens well.
Sure. And it all worked out in the end for me. And I apologize. I have no camera today. I've loaned my laptop to a friend for a virtual doctor's appointment. So I'm on a different device, but I know I joined at a very difficult time.
You did. Yeah.
Yes.
You did. Yeah. Well, and good for you for hanging in there. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and you got a good team leader too, so.
I do, and it's working out great. I've got 2 closings under my belt now, so I've learned a lot.
Sweet.
One buyer, one seller, and so.
Good for you.
Thank you. It feels good.
Yeah, it does feel good. Good for you.
It does.
That's
Now I
great.
got to get busy with lead gen, because like I shared with the group yesterday, I got really busy closing those and learning, and then my activities fell behind. So.
Well, so you know what? You just raised a great point, right? Because our number one thing each day has to be that contacting our sphere. We talk about the 10, the 10/10s, whatever our business activity, that has to be the first thing we do every day. Because the truth of the matter is, as soon as you close a transaction, you're unemployed.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
I got to go out and find another. So it's really important that we continue that business activity that continues to feed that funnel of leads and those relationships that are going to feed us those leads. Because like I said, I work my referral base. So a lot of what my business depends upon, or referral base, my sphere, because a lot of what my business relies upon is referrals that come out of that sphere. Because
Yes.
I am everybody's buddy who's also a realtor.
Yes.
So and I will echo exactly what you're saying. If I get too busy and I've laid off and haven't been paying attention to my sphere of friends, yeah, I realize it. And typically I realize it 3 months down the road. And then I go, okay, I got to get back to doing my business, because it's about relationships. It's about staying in relationship with people and communicating with them. So
I want to add just really super quick that I liked what Brian had said as well about just knowing that both of you guys just coming from a place of knowledge and just sharing, and I realized every time I reached out to somebody in the beginning and I felt like I might be car salesman-y, like they're not even going to want to talk. It's not like that at all. Everybody I've reached out to has been so welcoming, and if they aren't in the market, they know somebody that might be. And that was a big aha for me. I had to learn that.
Yeah, that's a huge aha, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As soon as it's, and I remember I've been in real estate now for 12 years, but I remember when that clicked in my head, just what Brian was talking about. When that changed from, oh my gosh, I'm making a sales call, or I'm trying to make a sales pitch, to, you know what? I'm just reaching out to my friends and I'm trying to figure out who I can be in relationship with.
Yep.
And as soon as that mindset changed in me, it drastically changed my business. My business took off from there. It really did. It was night and day. And so, yeah, good for you. Good for you. So really quickly then, moving on to our next segment here, I just want to capture what I'd like you to do. So whenever I go to training events, so whether it's National Association of Realtors or a local one that, we have at our association, or a state one that our state puts on, I think it's really helpful if you can just take a few moments. So we're going to do this right now. I want you to capture what you've caught over this last 2 weeks and kind of let's prioritize it, right? So first question that I want you to ask, and the answer should only be one or two things, right? How has your thinking changed about your real estate business? I want you to write that down. I should have warned you this. Grab a piece of paper, have something to write on, or have a split screen and take notes on your computer. How has your thinking changed? One or two. I don't want a big long list. I just want one or two things that I want you to write down. I want you to capture this. How has your thinking changed as a result of being Ignite over this last 2 weeks? What ideas or mindsets are new to you? Kim brought one up, and that's what triggered this. I want to capture that. I want you to write that down, because I want you to, you're going to write this down, and you're going to have this in front of you. Okay. Because you're going to remind yourself over the next few weeks about that change in how you think about the real estate business and being in real estate. Right? Everybody got that? Give you just a moment here to write that down. Again, one thing, two at the most, no more than that. You too, Anna. You have a good afternoon. It's really, really important if you're going to get value out of these, any training event. I do this with any training event, right? How has my mindset changed? How's my thinking changed around this? Okay. Okay. Second question. It's not just thinking, but I want you to think about how you feel. What do you feel differently about? What's meaningful today that wasn't meaningful before you took Ignite? Think of it that way. What all of a sudden do you have a different feeling about that all of a sudden raises to a different level of importance? Or maybe you're passionate about, if you can use that word, passionate, that you think is that all of a sudden is now very, very important. Okay. Again, one thing, maybe two, but no more than two. If you got more than two, it's not going to do you any good. Right? How has your feeling changed around a particular thing about your real estate business, being in real estate, being a realtor? Give you just a moment to think about this, mull this over. Okay. I think this is important because we're connecting our head with our heart, right? Typically this 18 difference makes all the 18 inches of difference makes all the difference in the world, right? So how have we changed our thinking? How have we changed our how we feel about something? All right. Now I want you to put those two things together, right? Whatever those two things were, or four at the most, shouldn't be more than that. How will your behavior be different now moving forward? Well, what actions are you going to take as a result of how your thinking has changed and how your feeling has changed about it? And again, it's only going to be one thing, maybe two, no more than two. If you got more than two, you're not going to do it. One thing. What's one action? What's one behavior as a result of how you changed your thinking and how you changed how you feel about things? What are you going to do now? What's the action step you're going to take as a result of that? How's your business going to look different? So if I meet you 6 weeks from now or 2 months from now, and I were to ask you, so how did the night go? What did you take away? And how's your business different today than it was before you took Ignite? I want you to be able to point at that and go, you know what? Because how I thought differently and felt differently, this is how my business has changed. Everybody got that? Wrote down one thing, maybe two, right? Okay, Last question. How are you going to hold yourself accountable to it? How are you going to hold yourself accountable to it? Share with the team leader, share it with another realtor in your office that, and you're going to give them permission. Okay, you're going to invite them to hold you accountable. Right? I set a goal to do this differently. And what I'd like you to do is every time I see you or every time we get together for coffee, I want you to ask me this question about that activity. I give you permission to hold my feet to the fire. We have one agent in our office who did this at a high level. Are you ready for this? She's so serious about building her business that she filled out a McDonald's application and it's pinned above her. And she told the other agent in the office, if I don't reach my goal, you're to take this application and make me submit it to the local McDonald's. That's how serious she is about this particular goal that she has. How bold is that? Is that like crazy or what? I just cracked up. But more power to her, right? Yeah, my hats off to her. It's like, good for you. I mean, wow. Good grief. So how are you going to hold yourself accountable? And part of that question might be, depending on what that behavior and thinking is there a system, tool, and model that you need to implement to help you reach that goal, right? It might be something around, getting contacts in command or using designs in command to do more marketing, social media marketing, whatever. Are there system, tools, and models that you need to implement to reach that goal or to help you reach that goal? So just make a note of that. But again, the one thing is, who are you going to hold yourself accountable to? So it should be just one individual that you hold respect and that that loves you enough to hold you accountable to that, right? They gotta be willing. They gotta love you enough to be able to hold you accountable to that. Again, it could be your team leader. It could be your team rainmaker, coach. Maybe if you have a coach, it could be another realtor in the office, or maybe if you share an office space. I share an office space with Katie, and so when we set goals, we hold each other accountable. All right.
I can't remember which Ignite teacher it was in the first set, but he said that his children, he made them hold him accountable, because he said when he put Disneyland as the goal on his board at home,
Yes.
that every day he goes, you think that they're not going to remember, but he said every day, did you sell a house? Did you talk to somebody about selling a house? Did you get a possibility of a new house? Like they were on him every night. So he said kids were great accountability holders.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Won't work for me. Mine are adults, but I just thought that was cool to share.
No, it is cool. Yeah, that's a great motivator. Yeah, I love that. That's tough. Oof. Yeah, that's not nearly as tough as the McDonald's application. That's like taking it to a whole new level there. Yeah. So that's pretty funny. Okay, so you have those things written out. So here's the last thing around that. What I want you to do is I want you to print that out or write that out or whatever, and I want you to have that in a prominent place that you can look at each day. Does that make sense? I want you to have that available somewhere that you're going to look at that each day. How your thinking has changed, how your feeling has changed, and what you're going to do about that. What are you going to put into place, and how you're going to be held accountable to that. Right? that's kind of a what's the word? It's kind of a mashup of, if you've read The One Thing yet. Has anybody read The One Thing? Yeah, I think it's like, has become my favorite book. It's kind of a mashup of that. It's not quite the same thing, but if you haven't read The One Thing, I really encourage you to do that. Also, the other book is The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Has anybody read that? Yeah, good for you, Brian. Yeah, to me, that those two books are huge, and being able to shape your thinking and your practices around your building your real estate business. Okay. All right. So I want to talk just a little bit here about scripts. Now, we've done some scripting in it, or you should have done some scripts and role play earlier in Ignite. Let me kind of cap this off. Why is it important that you take time to learn and internalize and personalize scripts? What's the importance around that? Can somebody give me an idea of why that's a thing, or why you should do that?
Well, it just seems more natural, right? Like, and if you're reading and you're going, so tell me about your family, and then they're like, what? Who is this guy? As opposed to you're talking like this, normal, you and I, AB conversation, right?
Right. Yeah,
hey,
I love that.
And then you just check that list. It's natural as opposed to like
Right.
a news anchor, like Ron Burgundy reading it, right? Or whatever.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I call them business conversations and questions. That's really what they are, right? You're being coached into how to have business conversations and questions. How many of you ever walked away from a conversation and go, oh, yeah, I wish I'd thought of that? I have many times, right? Or you walk away, oh, I wish I had asked that question. I hadn't thought about that. The scripts and role play, that's really what that's for. It's an opportunity to learn the questions you should be asking and learn those conversations you should be having. And it gives you an opportunity to practice that ahead of time, right? So if you're working with a buyer, you're at an open house and the buyer comes into the house, do you know the questions you should be asking, and do you know the conversations you should be guiding them toward to discover what their needs are, right? And especially if you're brand new into real estate, you don't know what you don't know. The scripts and the role playing put you on steroids so you get there quicker versus taking your time to learn as you go. And later on you learn what you should have asked or what you should have said. Being involved in scripts and role play, I think, is a huge advantage because it gets you started that much sooner in knowing what those conversations should be, right? So that's why I like to call it business conversations and questions. Do you know how to work with when you're at a listing appointment, right? Do you know how to uncover the motivations of the seller and why they are wanting to sell their house and what their next steps are going to be? Do you know what questions you need to ask? Scripts and role play are going to help you get there, right? If you're lead generation and you're calling your sphere, do you know what kind of tools to use to guide that conversation rather than just have this, awkward conversation with, I don't know really why I'm calling, but I'm just reaching out and, touching people in my sphere. Well, that's the advantage of having the forward conversation, right? If you've got that rattling around in your head, you can automatically just use as an opportunity to generate questions and be interested and learn about their life and what they're going through, right? Oh man, I forgot. Well, there's another acronym that we use for that. What is it?
LP Mama.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, I don't. Yeah, why that escaped my brain, but yeah, that's another one. That's a great opportunity to have that in your head. So when you're having those conversations, It's just natural. And that's what Doug was pointing out. See, you know, you don't want to have something that you're just had memorized. It really needs to be an internalized conversations you have. And that's the advantage of having the scripts and role play, right? If you're getting to that place to where in a listing appointment or in a buyer's appointment and you're trying to close the deal, you're trying to get them to the place to where they say yes to you, do you know what those questions need to be? Do you know how to move somebody from I don't know what I'm going to do to a definite yes, right? Do you know how to, in your scripts or in your conversations and questions, be able to identify possible objections that you need to handle, right? Sometimes they're not, sometimes those objections are why somebody wants to sell, or sometimes why somebody wants to buy is not necessarily verbalized really up front. You need to do a little bit of digging. Do you know what questions those you should be asking to be able to uncover those? What's their true motivation? What is their true objections, right, to taking the next step, right? Because a lot of those is, as a professional, you're able to address those fears and concerns and put them at ease that this is the right decision for them, right? I think the other thing is it'll build a sense of confidence in yourself that you know what you're talking about, right? I don't think any of us likes to enter into a conversation where where we don't think that we really know what we're talking about. That's the other advantage of practicing, taking time to practice the scripts and role play. So does your market center have times during the week where they have an opportunity to do scripts and role plays with other agents or in a group? Jim, yours does? Anybody else's? Ours does, the Tri-City Market Center. So if your market center doesn't, that shouldn't prevent you from doing that. The worst thing you can do is take the time to go through them yourself. The best practice would be to get together with another realtor in your office and practice them. We have a realtor in our office who practices them with his little 6-year-old kid. And it's hilarious what he does videos with his kid as they're role playing back and forth. It's funny. And his son has really caught on to this thing. is great in responding to the scripts. But do you know where you can get the scripts? Is everybody aware that they're available to you? That you know where you can get them?
I don't know where to get them.
Okay, great. That's what I'm here for. So in the KW Connect page or the Keller Williams University page, you can get the scripts right from there.
Okay.
Right. Let me see here. I can show you what they look like if I can figure out how to. Yeah, here. Oh, that's not it. Good grief, Ron. So here, Christy, here is what the lead generation, there's 3 volumes actually in this. The KWU Scripts Catalog, this is volume 3. There's also a volume 2 working with sellers. And there's also a volume 1 working with buyers. I've actually downloaded them and I have them on my computer, or actually they are in my Dropbox folder, so I can get them anytime. So one of the things you can do is going through these is just simply reading through these and internalizing them. You'll notice there's a ton of scripts in here. You see all those?
I do. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So there's plenty of opportunity in here to be able to, that's just the outline, by the way. Then it gets down to the actual scripts. So there's plenty of opportunity for you to be able to just, even if you have to just sit down on your own and go through these, and I encourage you to read them out loud. Right? Don't read them quietly, but read them out loud so that you kind of pick up on how you would voice. And again, the point is not to, like Doug said, I love how Doug said, you're not going to pick this up and you're going to read this. Have any of you got those phone calls, those robocalls or whatever from salespeople online, and you can tell they're just reading the script to you? Has anybody got those phone calls besides me?
About renewing your car insurance? Yes.
Yes, that's right. That's a great, yes, right. And isn't it kind of annoying because they're reading the script to you, and it's not really, it doesn't even sound genuine? Does anybody find that a little off-putting besides me? Right?
Very annoying.
Yes, I just had that happen to me yesterday. But it
Did
was
you really?
actually kind of convincing because it was this guy who answered and it sounded quiet. And he's like, oh, I just had a referral. I found you on the website. And do you have time to take new clients? And I was like, yeah, And then he's like, okay, let me transfer you to my boss. And then he transferred me. And then it sounded like kind of louder. And then this guy just kept going off. And I was like, okay, this is fake. But they've gotten more creative. I was like, all right.
That is pretty interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
I got the same call yesterday. Same
Did
call.
you really?
I had
Oh
that
my
one
gosh.
a couple weeks ago, too.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
guy's name was like Brandon or something. I don't remember.
Oh,
But
Brandon.
Oh, yesterday too.
Katie got a call
Yeah.
from a Brandon yesterday too.
There was a hacker.
oh, he was making the KW rounds
He
then.
was making the
No,
KW rounds. Holy
Me up this
cow.
morning. Are you serious?
There was a hacker.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
there's no way. Real estate's not that easy. Yeah. What do you live and you learn, right?
Right. Well, yeah, that's right. So the point is that even if doing this by yourself, is read them out loud so you hear your voice. But the point is not to memorize, and the point is to internalize the script, right? You don't need to necessarily get it word for word to get it right. What you really want to do is you want to capture the heart of, where the script is going and what the point of the script is. What's the point of this conversation? What am I trying to get to? That's what you want to get to. And then you're going to be able to express that in your own way, right? So you have a whole catalog of scripts that you can spend a lot of time. And so I really strongly encourage you that maybe part of your daily practice is, if you're brand new, is that you take 10 or 15 minutes each day. You take a script and you just spend time focusing on it, ruminating. How would I express this? How would I ask this? How would I have this conversation? What's this script trying to get to? What's the point of this conversation? That's going to get you much farther down the road, because now you're going to have a whole lifetime of experiences of conversations that you have access to right here. Right? One of the most powerful things I had early on in my my real estate career that I was really thankful for is I worked with a high producing agent who I just was a ride along for about a year. Every appointment he went with, he worked with a builder. And so I heard his conversations with builders. I heard his conversation with developers. We sat in the model home. I heard his conversations with people who came into the model home. I did open houses with him. I went on listing appointments and buyer's appointments with him. That was huge. I learned so much just hearing how he interacted, the kinds of questions after a while, I was remembering the conversations and basically just repeating them in my own way. That's exactly what the scripts are. You don't have to take a whole year hanging out with somebody. You have a lifetime of experiences of real estate conversations right there on paper in front of you. Utilize those, right? Take the time once every day, take 10 or 15 minutes and pull out a script Maybe it's a lead generation script. Maybe that's what you want to focus on for a little while. Go through, right? There are plenty of scripts where you can just, there's like, that was just one volume. There's 3 volumes in there. So you have tons of opportunity to be able to scroll through there and say, oh, this might be one of that I would find beneficial. Just spend 10 or 15 minutes working on that and working that in your head and internalizing that, so you know what kind of conversation you're going to have. You're going to pick up a lot of different angles through those scripts that you wouldn't have thought otherwise, except that you had the opportunity to review those. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Right. I know that in our market center, Damian Lalka does that once or twice a week. And I know that the productivity coaching program does it. And in fact, I think they're rescheduling that, where they're going to actually be having an opportunity to do that 4 days a week with the productivity coaching. But again, it's just that opportunity to be able to sit down and have a conversation around, the ideas and the questions that will arise sooner or later. They will come up and will arise in your real estate practices. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. Is everybody familiar with the do not call list and the compliance of the do not call? Was that covered sufficiently in Ignite when you spent some time on that? That's a huge thing, and it's becoming a thing again, and not just realtors, but just in sales, particularly people getting called on.
Maybe I missed it. I know they touched on it a little bit, but people call me all the time, still me,
Right.
and I'll say, please put me on your do not call list. And then the very next day, it's the same company, it's same over and over and over.
Right.
And with my parents, I audibly hear them say, like, hey, put me on your do not call list, right? And
Right.
it doesn't stop anything. Like, I won't do it just because I know how annoying it is, but I'm like, what is, I don't know. Yeah, if that makes sense. It's just agitating, and it's never.
It is very agitating, yeah. So if you are getting repeated phone calls from the same company that you asked, there is actually a process to report them, and it's a finable offense. Now, having said that, a lot of people don't bother with doing that, but that's what the whole do not call list is about. So under federal law, sellers and telemarketers, sales agents, and that includes real estate agents, they're prohibited from calling consumers who are on the Federal Trade Commission's do not call list registry. And there's a way to actually go on the Federal Commission's do not call registry to make sure your phone number is put on there, right? But you're exactly right, Doug. That does not necessarily prevent companies from giving you a call. One of the outs they have is if you've had any kind of business interaction with them or one of their affiliates, that is a kind of a loophole they use to give you a call because supposedly they had a business interaction with you, right? But this registry is really, really important, and what they are seeing is they are seeing a rise in violations in this, and probably because of the COVID thing, more people being at home. I don't know, but there are rules and exceptions, but it's still in place, and violations are being turned in, and fines are being handed out. So the registry's a dedicated site that you can go to. Your market center should have a subscription to it, and should have access to it. Technically, no sales calls whatsoever, especially telemarketing calls, are to be made without access to the registry. So we want to make sure, particularly at Keller Williams, that you understand that that is there, that you should access the registry to make sure that, particularly if you're doing calls outside your sphere, people that you're not in relationship with, okay, that they aren't on the registry, right? So we really want to work at a high ethical level. We want to honor the consumer's requests. And so if they're, if their names are not on the, or are on the registry, we want to honor that, right? So know that not know the federal laws and know what the seller wants. And what I'd like to do now is I'd like to take another 10-minute break, and we're going to come back, and I'm going to be leading up to giving you time to update your contacts and do follow-up with your contacts. But I want to take a break before we do that, okay? So let's take a 10-minute break. It's 10 to 11 right now, so let's come back at 11 o'clock. And then we're going to do contact update and follow-up, right? So I'll see you in about 10 minutes, 11 o'clock.
A few moments later.
So I'm, obviously working full time and doing this part time.
Sure.
I haven't talked to anybody yet about joining a team.
Mhm.
Because I do feel like I could use a lot of mentoring and, to help me get started in the right direction. Because I have a ton of motivation, but I just almost don't know what to do next.
Yeah. Are you involved? Are you on the productivity coaching team?
I am with Eric.
I know that might be. I know that might be kind of tough if you're working, because we meet typically on Tuesdays at 4:30 to 5:30, 5:45.
Well, I'm usually off by 3:30 at the latest, so that is actually the easiest part for me. The hardest part is during the day,
right,
when I'm working. But my goal is to obviously be able to do real estate full time.
Right.
The sooner the better. And so I'm extremely motivated, and I just need to take advantage of all the tools to propel me to that goal.
Right. Right. Yeah. So the being in part of the productivity being part of the productivity coaching team, I think is going to be really, really important, because Erica she's going to coach toward that. I think the other part is really focusing on building your command database. And that is, going to be your lead generation, contacting your sphere, getting that contact, getting that information in there. That really has to be step one. That's why when I led off this morning, I asked how many people have at least 100 people, because that's kind of the goal, is for the 2 weeks of Ignite. By the time you get done, you've got at least 100 people in your database. And if you've done both weeks of Ignite, you should have 200 people in your database. That's really our goal. And that you get them in the database, and you also get them on Spark Plan, so that you have a regular way that you're going to communicate with them and be in relationship with them. That's the point of the Smart Plans. It's just before I joined Keller Williams, I used Top Producer, and I really liked Top Producer, but it was really expensive. I was spending a lot of money on it. But every day when I opened up Top Producer, I knew that I had at least 5 people I had to contact, and it was right there in front of me. I knew who I needed to contact, and also would remind me how I needed to contact them, whether I needed to make a phone call, send a text message, or write a note card. And so every day, 5 people, every day, 5 people. And then also the goal was to every week have 2 or 3 appointments at my favorite coffee shop in town. So, which was at that time was Barracuda on Van Giesen in Richland. And so my goal was to 5 people a day, have contacts, and have 2 or 3 appointments at Barracuda Coffee. And when I was doing that pretty consistently, things were running pretty smoothly. I've kind of dropped the ball on that the last couple of years. It's been a little bit difficult being managing broker in our office and trying to maintain my own business activity.
I've got to figure out how, like, the only contacts I've had so far are like patients of mine that
Right.
come to the clinic, and I have gotten quite a few, but I don't know how to find other ones, like people to call. I don't know where those resources are to find them. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
right. And so, and unfortunately with the COVID thing going on and the low inventory, it's been a little bit more difficult in that. One of the things we've traditionally really heavily depended upon was being able to do like open houses. So, on the weekend, on Saturday or Sunday, we'd have an open house for 2 or 3 hours. And then that was a lead generation time, like you learned in the class when we talked about that here a couple of days ago. It's the point of doing the open house is not to sell the house. The point of doing the open house is to have an opportunity to meet people, to get in a relationship with them, right?
absolutely.
We're looking for those orphan buyers. We call them orphan buyers because they're not working with a real estate agent most often. And so they're walking into the open house, and that gives us an opportunity to meet them, get in a relationship with them, and begin to serve their real estate goals and needs. And many times, my experience has been is most people who come into the open house, they weren't ready to buy a house that day, but they were looking. And typically it was 3 to 6 months down the road before they were in position. But I was there to build that relationship. I made sure they were working with a good lender, right? If they weren't working with a real estate agent, I invited them into that relationship. I connected them with a good lender who I worked with, who I knew that as soon as I connected them with that lender was going to stay in contact, was going to help me stay in contact with them. And oh, by the way, remind them that they're in a relationship with me, right? And so that by the time they were financially ready to buy, we were well positioned in our relationship together. So I just stayed in contact with them.
Yeah, I think that's really important for sure.
Yes, it is. So fortunately, we're opening up a little bit more, and so we're allowed to do open houses, we do appointments. We're restricted to how many people. Right now it's 10 people. It used to be 5, but now in phase 2 we're allowed 10 people in the house. But I think that's going to be a huge opportunity. Unfortunately, the inventory is really low, and so I would encourage you to, as much as possible, either and especially if you're brand new in this, I encourage you to do an open house with an experienced agent.
I did advertise on there to do one this weekend,
Good for
and
you.
I'll make myself available every weekend.
Yeah, and I would just, especially in our office Facebook page, I would just every week I'd say, hey, I'm willing to do an open house, and like I shared earlier, part of my learning experiences was doing it with an experienced agent and hear the conversations he had with the people who came through the front door, and I learned so much just by listening and mirroring that conversation.
So oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm
Yeah,
like
go ahead.
listening to you guys, and I'm like, this is very relevant, Christy and like, because I'm new too, and it's like I just didn't know it. I don't think there's teams available in Yakima, but it's like I want to learn like that. You know what I mean? To like be
Sure.
able to follow someone like that, because I know if I do that, I can be successful like that. But right now I'm independent, and
Right.
I don't know, like because I know there's Yakima's smaller than the Tri-Cities and stuff, but
Yes,
it's just
it is.
kind of like, and open
Well-
houses, it's like I don't know quite how to do them yet. I wouldn't be opposed to just being thrown out there and doing it, but would an agent be okay if you're like, hey, can I just go with you and shadow you?
they would, well,
Exactly. Like
our
instead
our real estate office, I don't know about Yakima, but our real estate office, I would say, is very highly collaborative. So
Yeah.
if there's an experienced agent doing an open house and a new agent in our office said, hey, I'd like to do, could I just shadow you for your open house? Not a problem. They
Right.
wouldn't have a problem with that at all. There are many of the experienced agents who have those listings, they love it when there's even a new agent who wants to do an open house for them,
right.
because they love being able to tell the seller, hey, listen, I've got an agent doing open house this weekend. They're going to be doing it from XYZ to XYZ. We're going to get the flyers. We're going to get the word out. However they do that, sometimes they do postcards in the neighborhood. It's a great opportunity when you're doing that open house to door knock the neighborhood the day before or the morning of, and hand out flyers and invitations to come to the open house, because that gives you an opportunity once again to get in front of people, to get in a relationship with them, particularly if maybe they don't realize the value of their home. Maybe they're in the process of considering themselves selling their home in the neighborhood, or maybe they know somebody who wants to live in that neighborhood, or they have friends and family who they want to be close to them. So there's huge opportunity in that. So I know there's a few agents in our office before COVID hit. Their goal was to door knock 100 doors before they did an open house. They do 50 one day, 50 the next day. And a lot of their business was generated through that door knocking opportunity. It was amazing to me how well they did that. Okay.
I like that face-to-face connection with people more so than calling people.
Yes. Yeah. I think the vast majority of agents, I think, would echo that they're much more comfortable having that face-to-face interaction. So I think that's why I said, now that things are opening up a little bit better, I think it's going to become much better for our business, being able to do that, be able to meet people face-to-face. Even door knocking during the COVID thing, was shut down. So now that we're able to do door knocking, there's other agents. In fact, I was talking to an agent yesterday. They had just spent 2 hours doing drop-bys. So they have something of value, or sometimes they go to the dollar store and have a little gift bag thingy they put together from the dollar store. It's just an excuse to drop by, have a face-to-face interaction with somebody. And so they spent 2 hours doing that, driving around town, meeting friends and past clients and stuff like that. Again, it's all about relationships. And the question you have to ask yourself when it comes to your business is, how are you going to do that? What's that going to look like to you or in your business, right? And how are you going to measure that business activity?
I've had to be very creative and think outside the box since I'm
Good for
working
you.
during the day. And thank God I'm a people person. I
Yeah,
like to
good.
meet people. So I take advantage of when I meet anybody new, whether it's at the mall or if I'm out shopping or whatever. So last night I ran over to what's that electronic Best Buy over in Kennewick to get a Fire
Right.
Stick.
Yeah.
And there was a young guy there, and I told him, I said, I'm disconnecting my cable because I'm not paying all that money because that's ridiculous. I said, but I have to keep my internet because I'm a real estate agent. And I said, by the way, I said, if you ever need anything, let me know. And then he started laughing. He said, well, I'm an agent too.
That's
So
funny.
I'm like, darn.
Right.
But he was very sweet and, gave
Yeah.
me some advice. He said he just got licensed last fall and he's already had 2 closings.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
He works for a different company, but just a very nice guy.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You never know. My wife and I were heading out of town a couple of weeks ago, and she was actually wearing a jacket from a previous firm I had been at. And we had stopped at the Country Mercantile on our way out because we're on our way to Coeur d'Alene. And so some guy who was helping her said, "Are you a real estate agent?" She says, "No, my husband is. I'm just wearing his jacket." He says, "Well, I'm looking to buy a house."
Yeah,
You know how many years I wore that hot jacket and nobody ever said.
I'm about ready to buy myself a face mask that says realtor on it or something, just anything to get people's attention. But
Sure.
I had
Well, yeah, and they actually have those available to you. So
yeah.
yeah,
But I had a patient that came in last week and I was doing a drug test on him. And I was talking to him and he just got out of the Navy and he's coming to work out at Hanford. And
right.
I announced that I'm a real estate agent. And he told me, he said, "Well, I'm looking to buy a house in about 8 months." So, I start conversations like that as well,
Sure. Yeah.
So so I'm trying to be creative.
No, that's great. Yeah, and that's really what it is. It's just this constant invitation of being able to get into a relationship with people, become their friends, who and the value you bring to the friendship is that you have knowledge around the real estate market, what's going on. That's why I really strongly encourage part of the 410s is making sure that every week you're looking at homes on the market. Now, if you can't get out and physically see a home, at least go on the MLS and look at virtual tours, right? What is the condition of homes? What's the price of homes? And again, being knowledge about the market in our particular neighborhoods. I know in the Tri-Cities, Spokane, Lewiston, Clarkson, we all have areas of our towns that home prices and home values are different. And so it's really, really important that we know what's going on in those marketplaces and what homes are selling for. And so in having an opportunity to look through the TMO, the market report, having an opportunity to go online and look through and every week looking at least through 10 properties, and having that kind of level of professional knowledge and experience about what's going on in our market. I don't know about the other market centers, but in the Tri-Cities, the market is so volatile and changing so quickly. It's almost like the home that you evaluated today, 30 days later, could be a completely different home value. But you know what neighborhood that is, and do you know what that looks like, right? In some neighborhoods in the Tri-City market, we're seeing higher end homes see price reductions. So it might be indicating to us that sellers are, asking too much money for their homes. They're overly optimistic about what the value of their home is. Okay.
I was wondering about that, if it's starting to level out a little bit, the prices, because there's been bidding wars from what I understand. Is that correct?
Sure.
And so now I'm wondering if that's starting to settle down a little bit and prices are maybe starting to level back out a little bit.
I think again, it's going to be marketplace specific. We're still seeing neighborhoods in our area that homes are just flying off the shelf. They can't build them fast enough. You see other neighborhoods where things are slowing down a little bit. So again, I think it's having that kind of market knowledge of what's going on. What happens in North Richland is way different than what happens in South Richland. What's way different that happens out in Badger Mountain South or West Richland or Benton City or West Pasco or West Kennewick. So again, that is the value of taking time every day. Every day you're going to take 15 minutes, at least going through scripts, taking another block of time, half hour or so, or 45 minutes or an hour, researching homes and looking through homes, even if it's virtual homes. If you can at all, driving around neighborhoods and visiting vacant listings, right? Again, there's nothing that can replace that kind of market knowledge other than just being out in the market And so that's why, as part of our 410s, part of our goal is, is you're going to see 10 homes each week, right? That's going to be the value of that. All right. So what I'd like to do is we're going to take the next 30 minutes, and I'm going to give you opportunity to refresh your contacts, your database, make phone calls if you need to, write note cards if you need to. You're going to do that for the next 30 minutes. All right. Again, part of the value of Ignite is not just getting information and learning information. It's opportunity to get into your business and do business activity. So for the next 30 minutes, I'm going to give you opportunity to make phone calls, send text messages, write note cards. That's going to be part of your 410, right? You should be able to pretty much knock out that 10 within the next half hour, right? And then we're going to get back together at noon, and we're going to close early today. We're going to be done early, so we're going to get back together at noon. We're going to talk about what our business activity looked like over the last 30 minutes. If you have any questions or things like that, we'll solve that then, and then we're going to wrap it up, and I'm going to let you go for the day. Okay? Does that sound good? All right. So I'll see you back at noon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Perfect. Hey, Ron, just a quick question.
Yes, Victoria.
So, concerning that, do you think just posting on my realtor's page for this market area and just being like, hey, is there anyone that would like to have me shadow your open house or something like that? How do I say that?
Well, so we have an internal Facebook page in our market center. Do you have one up there in Yakima?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so I would use that internal page, Victoria, and I would say, hey, listen, I've got this weekend, and I've got this Saturday. I'd like to if anybody's doing a open house, I'd like to join you at your open house.
Okay, perfect. That sounds good.
Yeah, I would just put it in there like that. If you know somebody's doing open house, let's say they've already announced, because today's Friday, right? They've already announced they're doing open house. I just get a hold of them. Say, hey, listen, I hear you're doing an open house. Would you mind if I joined you?
Okay.
And I have yet to have anybody say no.
Right. That's what I've been hearing so far is agents are more than willing to be like, oh, you're telling me I can have my Saturday back? For sure. You can totally hold my open house.
Exactly right. Yeah. So, I don't know anybody in our office. I don't know anybody tell another agent no, that you couldn't join me or that you couldn't do an open house for me. Right.
I just want to be I just feel like maybe I should shadow first just so I just don't want to do it right.
I would encourage that.
Yeah.
That would be, if I was your team leader or if I was your managing broker, that would be my preference, is that you would shadow somebody at least once or twice.
Okay. And then just do you think it's a better idea to look into teams? I know it's more of a personal preference, but pros and cons, but just hearing how you were able to do so much that first year, maybe not production wise or whatever, but getting all that information, learning all that firsthand experience, that just sounded really valuable to me. And
sure it is. And one of the reasons why we have steps and why we have a process that we take, because it's really important that there's good alignment on that team.
Right.
And good alignment with the team leader.
Right.
Because otherwise it'll be a huge negative, not a positive at all.
Right.
Right.
That makes sense.
So, the Yakima Center is a little bit smaller. However, I would also encourage you, and I encourage independent agents in our office to leverage the experience in your office. Get into a relationship with another agent in your office that you look up to or that you get along with really well, that's more experienced than you, right? Let's say you're brand new and you don't have any production, but you have somebody in your office who's 2 years in and they're already at the $5 or $6 million production level. That's the relationship you want to get into. How did they get started and how did they get, they're 2 years in and they're doing it pretty good. I want to know how they got there.
Okay. Okay,
right?
that's some good info.
So even if you're an independent agent, find another independent agent that you can be in a relationship with and kind of buddy and partner with. And it kind of makes it fun too, because you can do open houses together. You can go door
Right,
knocking
yeah.
together. And that's what I love about our office is we're very, very highly collaborative, a lot of agents working together and helping one another.
Right. They have a culture like no other brokerage, at least that I know of, They're not out for themselves, more or less,
Yeah,
They're
no,
always-
that's good. That's good to hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Victoria.